I never imagined that I would say this anytime soon, but carbon just solved foam cores. Brands have been racing to create the next frontier in core innovation to improve durability, feel, and performance. While there have been several attempts, no one has solved the riddle yet. Until now, that is. Carbon developed what I believe is the most promising new core design and could very well be the future of paddle core technology. Hey, this is Bren with Pickleball Effect. Today we're reviewing and looking at the CRBN Genesis TruFoam paddle series. Carbon has completely rethought and reconstructed the way paddles should be made, and it's exciting. If you find my review helpful and decide to purchase one of these at any point, then please use my code PBEffect. This will give you a discount and will help support my channel. Thanks to Carbon for sending me these paddles. However, this video is not sponsored by them, and the views and opinions expressed here are solely my own, with the intent to help you find the best paddle for your game. These paddles cost $279.99 before discount, so I'm going to jump straight into how Carbon makes these paddles because it's interesting and something the industry just hasn't seen before. So Carbon is using a new core material made completely out of foam, but it's not the type of foam that you're thinking of. It's not soft and easily compressible like other foam materials that have been used up until this point. It's very firm and takes a lot of effort to fill any give. For example, the YOLO 3S series has extended foam around the perimeter of the paddle, and when you press into it with your thumb, you can see the flex. The same thing happens with the Rhombus Ripple, which also has a lot of foam in the core. The last example I'll share is the Diadem Vice. This paddle has a 100% EVA foam core and was never approved because it flexed too much like this. Now when I press into the Carbon paddle, you can hardly get it to flex, though it's not quite as firm as a polymer core paddle when you press into one of those. Talking with Carbon's engineer about the paddle, he says the foam they use rebounds and holds its shape very well and will be more durable than traditional polymer cores over time in the sense that it won't break in, develop dead spots, or core crush. I didn't experience any issues like these during my month-long of playtesting, which is usually long enough for problems like core crush and break-in to come up. If this stays true, then this is a significant development. We all want more durable paddles. This increased durability is the main reason Carbon has solved foam core challenges and is part of the reason I think this solid foam core could be the future of paddle cores. All other foam-heavy paddles have tended to break in and change performance over time, and polymer cores tend to develop dead spots after 6 months to a year of heavy use. Though the core is more durable, the grit wear remains the same, so hopefully someday down the road we'll get durable cores plus longer lasting grit. But this is still a big step in the right direction. Let's look at the guts of the paddle now. I cut one open and took an x-ray so that we can get a good look at what's going on. Looking at these, you can see that there are circle cutouts in the middle and rectangle cutouts around the sides. These are voids in what is otherwise a solid piece of foam. Carbon's engineer has tested and iterated different cutout designs like this to get the performance they wanted. Theoretically, they can change up the void design to produce more or less power, forgiveness, etc. They say the possibilities are endless. Then the big white square covering the circle voids you see in the x-ray is a layer of fiberglass to give the paddle a little more pop and power when activated on bigger swings. Lastly, in the x-ray, you can see that there's more white around the bottom half of the edges of the paddle. That's a layer of fiberglass on the edge of the paddle with the purpose to add targeted perimeter weighting for stability and balance. You can see that fiberglass layer in the teardown as well. Let's take a look at the numbers now. The series is launching with Carbon's 3 shapes, the 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to refer to them as the TF1, TF2, and TF3. The TF1 and TF3 are both elongated but have different handle lengths. The TF1 has a 5.5 inch handle and the TF3 has a 5.25 inch handle. Then the TF2 is a wide body shape with a 5.25 inch handle. All models are 14 millimeters thick. Starting with the TF2 model, this is their wide body shape and in my opinion is the most attractive model in the series. My unit had a static weight of 8 ounces and had a swing weight of 112, which I think is perfect. Most 14 millimeter wide bodies come in at or below 110, so I like that this is a little above that so it has some plow through and stability, but is still light. The swing weight range for this one will likely be between 111 and 114. Then it has a strong twist weight measurement of 6.7, which corresponds to its sweet spot size well. My TF3 unit had a static weight of 8.2 ounces and a swing weight of 122. This is on the heavier side, especially for a 14mm elongated paddle, and it feels a bit sluggish out of the box, but can be modified to be more maneuverable. The swing weight range for this paddle will likely be about 119 to 123. Then the twist weight measurement was 6.3, which was an above average measurement for an elongated 14mm, and the sweet spot correlated well with that value. My TF1 unit weighed 7.9 ounces and had a swing weight of 118, then had a twist weight of 5.9. The swing weight range will probably be about 118 to 121 for this one. Then it had a smaller sweet spot compared to the TF3, like the twist weight suggested. But it was lighter, so there's some give and take there that we'll talk more about later. All right, let's go put these on the court and see how they play. After drilling and playing with the paddles for over a month, here are my thoughts on their performance. I'll speak first about the general performance of the series and then give a short summary of the nuances of each shape. The TruFoam Genesis paddles are all-court paddles leaning power. They offer above-average power and mid-range pop. I like that these aren't rocket launchers though. They managed to design a foam paddle where they can control the performance output to the level they want. While the paddles are not this revelation in power and pop, though I think Carbon could turn that up if they wanted to for future models, it's more of a revelation in impact feel. They have this very natural and intuitive feel. It's a springy, soft, and responsive sensation that I haven't experienced in another paddle. It's not a soft bed feel like a pure EVA foam paddle that brands like Diadem and Rhombus have messed around with, but it's not that plastic on plastic feel of a polymer paddle either. It's somewhere in the middle and it's nice. It somehow feels like you think a paddle should. Plus, you don't generally feel as many unwanted vibrations, which gives you a more comfortable playing experience in general. On the control side, the paddles offer good feedback in the sense you know if you hit it where you wanted to or if you missed your target. Something about the unique feel of the paddle gives you a better connection with the ball and you know where it's going. It has enough pop to it though that you can't just pick it up and find your soft game immediately like a pure control paddle. You have to give it a couple of sessions to get a sense of how they hit since it's a new feel and a little springy. They have a higher launch angle compared to other 14mm too, more similar to a 16mm paddle in that way. So you have to adjust to that to bring your resets and thirds down. Once you get a sense for it though, it feels like home, and I would go through stretches where I felt like I couldn't miss. And when I did miss, it was often a third I left too high as I was getting used to the higher launch angle, or a reset from the midcourt that I would leave up. The fiberglass layer they put in the center gets activated when the ball is moving fast, and occasionally that layer would give me a little more on a reset that I expected when my opponents were putting lots of pace on the ball. Otherwise, the fiberglass activation layer didn't get in the way when I was dinking, stretched out, or hitting thirds. Offensively, the paddles give you above average power that you might call tier 3 power level that's below the Paddletech Bantams, though more than your typical all-court paddle. I rarely wished I had more power when I had time to swing on a drive or had a higher ball to put away. You could feel the effects of the fiberglass layer when you put a bigger swing on the ball or when you were defending drives, and that extra power was nice to have. Pop-wise, you could get enough pop on counters to keep pressure on your opponents, though it wasn't going to blow them off the court. Also low enough though that if I reached into the kitchen for a speed up, I didn't have to be too careful or over finesse it to keep it in play. I also didn't think it was too poppy to find success being aggressive with angles and hitting topspin dinks. The spin of the paddles was excellent. All of my spin test results for the paddles were close to or above 2,000 RPMs, which is a great result for me, and the spin was available all over the court. It's not like it was only there on drives or something. The paddle gives you this pocketing sensation when you hit it, and I don't know if it's actually doing that better than other paddles, but the spin is there and it makes you think it's pocketing that ball more. The sweet spots were good from side to side for 14mm paddles, but not as good as your typical 16mm paddle. While I thought the sweet spots were good, you do need to add some tungsten tape to the sides if you want a large sweet spot. Vertically, the paddles were a little weaker near the top corners and the throat compared to thermoform paddles, but better than traditional cold press paddles. Now let's touch on some of the individual aspects of each shape. Starting with the TF2, because I think this is the best one in the series. I liked it most for a couple of reasons. It was the most forgiving and it had more offense at the net with it being lighter and having a little more pop than the other two shapes. You give up some reach, but I think it's worth the trade-off. While I liked its weight out of the box and didn't think adding weight was totally necessary, I personally felt I needed a little more weight and plow through to help it from the backcourt on drives and serves. I experimented with weight in the throat and tried a couple different tungsten tape densities, and ended up putting 3.5 grams of 1 gram per inch tungsten on the side that covers the Carbon logo, and I liked that best. I also added this 6 gram copper weight from a brand called Flick Weight to the butt cap to improve hand speed a bit. It also helped make the paddle just feel a touch more solid in general. With these modifications, my swing weight changed from 112 to 116, my twist weight changed from 6.7 to 7.4, and my balance point dropped from 238 to 232. I'll add links to the tungsten tape and the flick weights in the description if you want to mimic my setup. Now let's talk about the TF1 and TF3. Both of these are heavier for 14mm elongated paddles, so you don't get the same advantage in hand speed as you do with other 14mm paddles, but they are a little more forgiving than your typical elongated 14mm from side to side as a benefit. These had more plow through and power from the baseline than the TF2, but were a bit less poppy than it was, which made them a little easier to reset and control at times. They don't have oversized sweet spots though, so I like these better with some modifications as well. I don't typically experiment this much with modifications for reviews, but these paddles feel and play so well that it was worth experimenting. My goal with the modifications was to improve maneuverability at the net and increase the sweet spot. I ended up adding 1 ounce slice caps to the bottom and adding 3 inches of 1 gram tungsten to the bottom corners. This lowered the balance point for better maneuverability at the net, improved the sweet spot, and reduced twisting on off-center hits. Picking between the TF1 and TF3 primarily comes down to weight tolerance. If you like heavier paddles, then go with the TF3 because its shape is a little more stable than the TF1, but if you're sensitive to heavier paddles, then the TF1 is the way to go. The shorter handle length of the TF3 didn't bother me or get in the way of two-handed shots, but if you know you need an extra long handle, then you'll want to go with the TF1. To me, the TF1 and TF3 needed some modifications to play to their potential, where the TF2 didn't have to be modified. I wish Carbon would make a true hybrid paddle shape. I think that would play really well with this technology, and hope they make one of those down the road. I'll finish here with some general thoughts. I like what Carbon did here. They developed a foam paddle that gives you the benefits of foam like improved feel, but they don't seem to have the same durability issues as other foam heavy paddles. Plus, I like that these aren't rocket launchers. They've managed to design a foam paddle where they can control the performance output better than anyone else has to date. This means we can have foam control paddles, foam all-court paddles, and foam power paddles that all benefit from the excellent impact feel these offer and potentially have core durability gains. This is a big win in my opinion, and why I can see this core material as the future and be superior to polymer cores. So there you go, that's everything I have for you. Thanks for watching, and I hope it helped.